In the current power struggle within the Islamic Republic, there is an important person that works from behind the scenes that many people are not paying attention to. This is a person with major connections to the intelligence operations of the IRGC, but more importantly, somebody with an important role within the Beit Rahbari, the office of the supreme leadership, and more importantly than even that, somebody with the closest connection to Mojtaba Khamenei. This person's name is Hossein Taeb, and it's very important to understand this person's history, his connections, his role, his agenda, and why he's one of the most important decision makers within the Islamic Republic that nobody is talking about. My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience in managing political activism inside Iran against the regime. In these videos, I try to give you the most important information that I think the media is missing. So, Hossein Taeb and Mojtaba Khamenei's friendship and alliance goes back a long time. In the 1980s, they served together. In the 1980s, in the Iran-Iraq War, in the Habib battalion together. That caused them to have a very strong bond with each other, and they really trust each other. And together, they started something called the Habib Circle, based on the Habib battalion that they served with each other in. Over the years, as Mojtaba Khamenei's political ambition and his influence grew, it was Hossein Taeb that was his main muscle, his main trusted, loyal friend that was his operative and his intelligence gathering agent and his main enforcer. Hossein Taeb originally was acting as an intelligence agent within the Ministry of Intelligence, but he was eventually kicked out of there because of his actions there against Hashemi Rafsanjani. But Hashemi Rafsanjani, when he was alive, he was a competitor to Ali Khamenei, and Hossein Taeb taking positions against that was probably based on the competition between the supreme leadership and the Rafsanjani camp. But after he was kicked out of there, he was accepted within the Beit Rahbari, the office of the supreme leadership. Ali Khamenei gave him a position over there. In the 2007 to 2009 Green Movement against the Islamic Republic, Hossein Taeb was one of the main people. He was a commander of the Basij, and Hossein Taeb was the main architect behind the brutal crackdown of the Iranian people during those years. From 2009 to 2022, he was rewarded for all of his work for the Islamic Republic, and he was put in charge of the intelligence of the IRGC, which is a very key position to have. This was from 2009 to 2022, and so for those 13 years, he created a shadow empire, and he was very effective at it. He cracked down on dissent, arrested dual citizens. He fought against the political within the regime, the competitions to Mojtaba and the Beit Rahbari. When it came to countering internal opposition within the Islamic Republic, he was very effective. And this position that he had was crucial to create the most powerful bridge between the IRGC and the Beit Rahbari, the office of the supreme leadership. He was the main bridge because he came from the supreme leadership office, and now he was the head of one of the most important parts of the IRGC, which was the intelligence units. It's Hossein Taeb that made Mojtaba so important, because it was Hossein Taeb and this powerful shadowy empire that Hossein Taeb built was the reason why Mojtaba's influence became bigger and bigger. And also it was Hossein Taeb that secured Mojtaba Khamenei's position as the next supreme leader once Ali Khamenei dies. Think about how important Hossein Taeb is. He was the head of the intelligence of IRGC. He was trusted by Ali Khamenei, and he had an important position within the office of the supreme leadership. And he was buddies with the most important son of Ali Khamenei. And with Mojtaba Khamenei becoming the supreme leader, his position has now been elevated as well. However, in 2022, there was a major end to his shadowy empire. There was a major setback in his influence, one that I assume that he has now regained with Mojtaba Khamenei being the supreme leader. But in 2022, under his watch, the IRGC intelligence operations suffered a catastrophic counterintelligence failure under his watch. That was when Mossad managed to infiltrate within Iran's borders and also within the Islamic Republic itself. Then this led to some very high-profile assassinations of major Islamic Republic officials under Hossein Taeb's watch. This included the assassination of Fakhrizad, the most important nuclear scientist of the Islamic Republic, some targeted killing of some IRGC commanders, and also repeated sabotage on some very important secure nuclear and military facilities within Iran. But then the most humiliating thing on top of all of that is that under his direction, the IRGC intelligence operations were planned to kidnap or assassinate Israelis in Turkey. And not only that failed, which was already humiliating enough, it also led to a public diplomatic crisis with Turkey. All of that led to them removing Hossein Taeb as the head of IRGC intelligence operations. And this was an obvious demotion, but he still managed to keep his connections and a lot of his influence. But this was obviously a major demotion. But after the American and Israeli-led military operations and the killing of Ali Khamenei, with Mojtaba Khamenei becoming the supreme leader, Hossein Taeb's position is now bigger than ever. Not only that, given that Mojtaba Khamenei himself is not present for one reason or another, the office of supreme leadership's influence and power needs to rely on many other people within the Beit Rahbari, within the office of the supreme leadership, that are not Mojtaba. This has always been the case to some extent, but now more than ever before. Because before Mojtaba, when Ali Khamenei was the supreme leader, the other people within the office of the supreme leadership were very important. There are many people who manage the wealth, who are controlling things within the Islamic Republic from behind the scenes by pulling different levers and the different connections and the sources of influence that they have within IRGC, within the parliament, within the executive branch, within the judiciary branch, and one of the most important places within the National Security Council. They have all these levers, and it's not just the supreme leader doing all of this. It's an entire office that is analyzing things, that is gathering information, that is managing the big wealth that the Beit Rahbari has. So obviously the supreme leader will not be able to do all of these things himself, but the supreme leader's presence out there, especially his sermons, are very important to demonstrate and enforce the power of the Beit Rahbari, because other than the wealth that they have, the main source of their power is the fact that they are the circle around the supreme leader. So the supreme leader needs to come out and give sermons and to make the position of this office clear and to be the charismatic leader that puts everybody within the Islamic Republic on the same page as much as possible. So it is the supreme leader making that position clear, making that reason for loyalty to the regime public and visible, and then the rest of the office, the rest of the Beit Rahbari takes care of everything else, the financial side of it, the intelligence gathering, the commands that need to go to the different parts of the Islamic Republic. That is done by the office. But now with Mojtaba, instead of Ali Khamenei being the supreme leader, even if he was alive, he wouldn't have the same level of charisma and loyalty as Ali Khamenei. But now, given that he's not even present, the rest of the office becomes very important. And to try to fight against the IRGC, taking all the power, they need to work double time now. And this is where Hossein Taeb becomes very important. I would argue that it is not wrong to consider whether Hossein Taeb is in effect the real supreme leader right now. Mojtaba Khamenei doesn't have the experience, he doesn't have the know-how, he doesn't have the soft power that comes from the so-called charisma that his father had among the regime supporters. So he, more than his father, is dependent on the other people within the Beit Rahbari. And that's why the Beit Rahbari itself, the office of the supreme leadership itself, becomes more important than the supreme leader himself. It's true that they still need him as a supreme leader to be able to have any legitimacy for their power, but the dependence on Mojtaba on the office is more than the office on Mojtaba. And the relationship with Ali Khamenei was the other way around. And given how the office is now more important than the person, the most important person within this office will in effect be the real supreme leader. It might be difficult to figure out who those most important people are without access to what's happening behind the scenes, but Hossein Taeb is the most important name that comes to mind right now. Remember, even though the IRGC holds the main power, the IRGC is not a monolith, and different people from different camps also gain influence by having a loyal base within different segments of IRGC. Because remember, there's three sources of political power. people power, which comes from loyalty, charisma, people believing in you. Then we have military power, which mainly rests with the IRGC. And then we have the economic power, which also is mainly controlled by IRGC, but the Office of Supreme Leadership is also very wealthy. Given that the source of military power, which is the most important power, is mainly within IRGC, are there different segments of the Islamic Republic, depending on how much connection and how much loyalty they have of different segments within the IRGC, their positions in other places will become more secure. So, for example, one reason why Ghalibaf is important at all is not because he's the Speaker of the Parliament, it's because he was in the IRGC and there are certain segments within the IRGC that are loyal to him and are close to him. Not enough to make him the most powerful person within the Islamic Republic, but still. The Office of the Supreme Leadership has mostly soft power or people power within the regime supporters because he's the supreme leader and there's a level of loyalty to that position. They also have some economic power, but not at all close to what the IRGC has. But what they're missing the most is military power. And this is where Hossein Taeb comes in. Because Hossein Taeb, for 13 years being the head of IRGC intelligence operations, means that he has a lot of access and a lot of network to key important people within IRGC. That is the most important military connection. So Hossein Taeb has the most important military connection for the Beit Rahbari to the IRGC. And that is a very important connection to have if you're trying to survive this slow coup that has been taking place for a couple of years now. It was always expected that with the death of Khamenei, the slow coup of the mullahs versus the turbans would escalate. And the main boots are the IRGC, and the main mullahs is the Office of the Supreme Leadership. Remember, when we're talking about moving from a theocracy and closer to a military dictatorship, the theocracy part is not all the mullahs. Many mullahs don't have that much power. When we're talking about the mullahs, the main mullahs in charge, which makes the Islamic Republic a theocracy, basically the Beit Rahbari, the Office of the Supreme Leadership. From the four factions that we talked about, the Office of the Supreme Leadership, the negotiation facing track, the IRGC, the military corps, basically number 3, and number 4, the ideological pressure camp or the priority camp, the two main ones are basically the first and the third one, the Supreme Leadership and the IRGC. And there's a competition between them, and the expectation is that the IRGC will eventually win, but the Office of the Supreme Leadership is not going to just take this. They're going to keep fighting for more power and continued relevance. And at the end of the day, even if the IRGC wins this battle, they still need the Office of the Supreme Leadership. It will just move closer to a symbolic role compared to the level of influence that it had before with Khomeini and Ali Khamenei. But if there's one person that we could think of that would be the best suited to try to save the Office of the Supreme Leadership, would be Hossein Taeb, with all of his experience and all of his know-hows and all of his connections. I could get into a lot more detail about this, but I don't want to make this a long video. If you want to come talk to me about this topic and all other political topics, we have a discussion group. The link is in the description. It's in the bio. It's also available by scanning this QR code. We have a discussion group that we talk about all things politics, not just Iran related, but just politics as a whole. So if you're interested in political discussions, come there. There's a really good community there with lots of interesting people and a lot of knowledgeable people that you want to talk to. I'm there almost every day, so come talk to me as well. Leave a comment letting me know if this video was helpful. Also, give me suggestions on what the next videos need to be about. My name is Armin Navabi. I'm Israel Chai. Long live America. Javid Shah. Payande Iran.